Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to At America, the U.S. Embassy's American Center. I'm Sim. I'll be your host for today's event, Careers in Psychology, a World of Possibilities. Today, you guys are going to hear from Ashley Jordan, Associate Professor of Psychology from University of Arizona, about the many options and opportunities when choosing a career in the field of psychology. But before we start this session, I have a quiz for you guys watching offline and online. And the question is, true or false? Counseling psychologists help people understand and take action on career and work problems. Submit your answers on our social media, either on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. And the fastest person who can answer the question correctly will get a shout out from us at the end of today's event. Okay, now without further ado, I'm going to give the floor to our moderator for today and Education USA advisor, Caroline Darmanto.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. So thank you for spending your holiday with us. Thank you for coming here and for tuning in online with Education USA and Ad America. But I have to thank the Ad America team as well for making this happen during the holiday so that we can give you and provide you with the information from Education USA and today with the University of Arizona to you. All right, so before we start, I need to tell you of what Education USA is, why we're here, and how are we going to help you. So, Education USA is a network under the US Department of State, and we are available in over 170 countries globally. And we have several centers in Indonesia with 8 advisors standing by. So, we have one in Aceh, we have two in Jakarta, one here at America, and one at the US Embassy. But what is very interesting about Ad America is that we are open every single day throughout the year. For example, today, so you can meet the advisors whether it's online or offline anytime, and you just have to set the appointment with us. And then also on Java, we have one in Surabaya, one in Malang, and one other center in Makassar. So if you don't live anywhere, in the cities, don't be afraid. You just have to scan this QR code on the bottom right here, and make your appointment with any of the advisors anywhere because we're available for you. Basically anytime. All right. So what do we do here, and how are we helping you? So Education USA has the very famous 5 steps. The first one would be researching your options. So researching your options meaning that you can talk to us about what you want to study, where do you want to go, and how to choose the right college that fits you. The second one would be financing your or funding your studies, meaning you talk to us and ask us anything about the scholarships, about athletic scholarships, about anything funding that may help you to realize your dreams to study in the U.S. The third one that would be completing the application. So we're here to help you and guide you throughout the application process. We're here to help you, read your CVs, help you with the interview, with the mock interview. We help you with, filling out the application, reading your essays, brainstorming the essays. In fact, we're gonna have, a special event this July for 3 sessions for undergraduate students or high school students who are looking at undergraduate degrees so that we can help you brainstorm and help you guide the process of personal statement writing. The fourth one, we also have preparing your student visa. So a lot of the students, a lot of the people here, they're afraid of like what are they gonna ask during the visa interview, and they're afraid of what if I feel something wrong on the on the application on the form. Don't be afraid. We're here to help you out with that also. The fifth one would be preparing for your departure, which next month on the 22nd of July, we're going to have an event called the Pre-Departure Orientation. That's an annual event by the U.S., by the U.S. Embassy and Education USA here at America. So feel free to come in so that what are the things that you need to prepare. Even if you're not living this year, maybe you're planning to go next year, but in the next couple of years, it's okay. Just drop by just to see what you need to prepare and how are we going to help you with that. Right. So those are the 5 steps that we do here at Education USA. So without further ado, I'm gonna call our speaker for today, Ms. Ashley Jordan from the University of Arizona, and she's gonna talk about the career options in psychology. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and be able to talk to you virtually and in person about different career options and pathways with a psychology degree. I want to start by just telling a little bit about myself and my background. I'm from Texas and born and raised there. Did my bachelor's there, which is our undergraduate degree. And then from there, moved on to get my master's degree from Florida Atlantic University in the state of Florida. And finally, over to Arizona, which has now become my home, where I earned my PhD and now work as an associate professor of practice in the psychology department, and I oversee our online programs there. Um, my background throughout my educational experience has been a little bit of an anomaly compared to many of our students because I always knew I wanted to be in the field of psychology. And I think that a lot of people end up kind of stumbling into psychology, not sure what they want to do, but they're interested in the topic. I knew that I loved education and I wanted to be in college the rest of my life. And so mission accomplished because that's exactly what I've done. I've made that my career. And I want to help our students as well as prospective students know that psychology is really a very broad degree that can be applicable in so many different career fields and pathways. So, whenever I tell people that I'm in the field of psychology, I usually get a response of, "Oh, you're psychoanalyzing me." When we came to Jakarta for this trip, uh, in customs, you go through customs, and was asked, what are you doing? What are you here for? And the answer is psychology. And they actually said, oh, so you read our minds, which is not exactly what psychology is, but it is something that people often think about. And so when you think about psychology, most people will consider that it's something about that. Mm, What we actually do in terms of our education in our department at the University of Arizona is everything about healthy minds, brains, and lives. Our sole goal in psychology is to promote health and healthy living and healthy minds, being active, aging well. And so psychology is applicable to a broad array of career options. When people think about what psychology is, they tend to think of this. They think of counseling or therapy, maybe child therapy. But psychology is also all of these things as well. It's working in the nonprofit sector, it's working in HR, it could be social work, teaching, business, program evaluation, user experience. There are so many ways that psychology can be applicable because ultimately psychology is the scientific study of the mind, brain, and behavior. And I would argue that that's applicable to everything that we do as humans. Our department at the University of Arizona has tried to engage with different educational opportunities online and internationally. And so we do have some partner institutions that we have worked with, Sam Perner University here in Jakarta, as well as elsewhere in the world. And that's one of the main things I want to get across and let people know is that there is a world of possibilities available for those who go into a psychology degree pathway. Many of our students will say that they are interested in counseling, and many of them do go into that pathway. But I think that there is such a varied career path option for people, and it's not always linear. So our students come from very diverse backgrounds. This is at the University of Arizona. We have half of our students are folks who identify as being from diverse backgrounds, not of the majority in the United States. And our program, our online program specifically, is ranked very highly in the US. We have over 2,500 students enrolled, or approximately 2,500 students enrolled. About 400 of those are fully online students. And we really invest into our students. That's something that we want our students to be successful, not just in the academic world, but also in whatever their journey is after that. Looking at our student population, the majority of students actually go directly into full time employment. So there is a subset of people who want to go into graduate education, so additional education after earning their degree in psychology. About 23% go into non psychology graduate programs, about 21% into psychology graduate programs. But you can see that 41% go in directly into the workforce. And many of these people are going to go into fields where it's something completely different than what they may have thought about when they entered into the degree pathway. I wanted to highlight a few of our alumni just to showcase how diverse these career path options are. So, on the left, we have Cassandra Lopez, who earned a Bachelor of Arts in our program, who is now working as an HR executive. We also have Kristen Moore in the center, who is a school counselor. And then on the right, on the right, excuse me, we have Andrew Flagg, who is the Deputy Director of Pima County Community and Workforce in the Developmental Department. And I have a video I'd like to showcase of one of our students who recently earned her degree just this year.
Growing up, I did traditional school all throughout my life until my freshman year of high school, and during that year I started struggling a lot with my anxiety and decided to make the change to an online high school. When I transferred to college, I decided I liked getting straight A's and wanted to keep doing this and prove to everyone that I could succeed and get a degree through an online education. I'm Danny McCartney. I'm a student at the University of Arizona Online. I'm studying psychology and care health and society, and I graduate in May of 2023. I decided to pursue a degree in psychology because I struggle with anxiety myself, and I kind of wanted to pursue an education where it would teach me about the brain and how our mind works and the psychology behind why we are the way we are, how we interact with people, different human behavior. Having an online education has really helped me pursue my goals and my first step of getting my bachelor's degree. The University of Arizona Online has given me the opportunity to take the same exact classes that I would take on campus, but just in a format where I find I learn a lot better with a lot of the same professors who are on campus. It's very connected to where I feel like I'm still getting the education that will prepare me for my future, but in a format that's much better suited for me. I think the BA in psychology is special because a lot of the professors who are teaching the classes are also involved in the field through research and in their careers. You're learning from real life situations. Online learning works for me because it allows me the flexibility to kind of create my own schedule of when I want to do school and focus on school, and I could concentrate on it when I'm ready to learn rather than being told, okay, I have to go at this specific time to a lecture. I'm allowed to do my lectures whenever I want to. I can email my professors and get a response that's one-on-one rather than having to raise my hand in front of a huge lecture hall of a ton of other students, because with my anxiety that kind of stumps me from being able to ask the questions where I am confused. After graduation, I plan on applying to grad school and obtain a master's degree in clinical psychology and become a clinical psychologist where I can help people who are struggling with mental health and change how we look at mental health. So this is my dog Coda. He's my psychiatric service animal, and he helps me by sensing when I'm having anxiety and calming me down. Hey bud, hey good boy. My name's Danny. I'm a psychology student, a dog lover, and a wildcat, and so is Coda.
So I wanted to highlight some of the different the different course options and pathways that we have for students because psychology is such an applied degree. We have a lot of different options that may be different than what many students think of when they think of the field of psychology. We have cognitive development, which will help students learn about the developmental processes going on with children as they're aging, children and adolescents. Forensic psychologists, where we actually have forensic psychologists on the faculty who teach these classes that also work full time in that field as well, counseling people and going to court for appointed cases where they're dealing closely with law. We have social psychology and a full program related to that. We have psychology of leadership, because what could be a more transferable skill than leadership when we're trying to shape the future leaders of the world? And we also have courses on aging. We have an entire program dedicated to learning about healthy aging and the myths of aging. When we think of aging, there tends to be stigma around it. And most people tend to think of aging in terms of pathological or unhealthy aging. And yet we know that that's not the case, that really the majority of us are going to age healthily. And what does that look like? And how can we support that in a world that is aging? We've really focused on building up a career center in our program where we can help students be placed with different career opportunities after they graduate, particularly since many are going to go directly into the workforce as opposed to going into graduate school. And so these are some of the skills that we make sure are embedded into all of our courses as students are completing their degree. We really emphasize critical thinking and students being able to garner skills in not just regurgitating information, but thinking critically and analytically about the information that they are learning in their program. And teamwork. This is one that is often a surprise for people because of the online nature of our programs, but students still interact in teams with their peers to problem solve and work through psychological case studies. Communication, it's very important in all career pathways for folks to be able to have strong verbal and written communication skills. Leadership, again, it's important for students to be able to go into different career pathways where they're going to be able to lead teams eventually. Equity and inclusion. We are a Hispanic serving institution, and again, we do have a very diverse student body with half of our students being from underrepresented backgrounds. And so, equity and inclusion is at the core mission of everything that we do in our department. And technology. It's important in this changing world for students to be digitally savvy and be able to navigate uh, the different technologies that will be beneficial for them in their future careers. So we have students who will come back and often tell us about the time or the experiences that they've had in different programs that they've been placed in. And it's often the case that these are not a straight line. The students might start in one career and then switch to another, just like in the video that I showed of Danny, that she has different plans for going down the line. And ultimately, what we want to do is be able to prepare our students to be valuable assets in any career pathway. We have many students who will go into law, students who will go into different service professions and into social work or human resources. And what want to emphasize is that it is something that is never too late for students to be able to find their pathway, and that really the only weakness lies in giving up. And as long as we are willing to try again, that there is always more opportunity. And that's something that in psychology we're lucky that we're able to apply this pathway or this career in so many different fields. So it really is just a world of potential opportunity. Are there any questions?
Right. Ashley, so we're gonna take some questions online too. We actually have a few already. Um, but does anyone here have any questions before we go to the online audience? If not, let's take a couple from the online audience first. So the first one we have Bella. Bella from Instagram. Her question is, what are some emerging fields and trends within psychology that offer exciting career possibilities, and how can professionals stay up to date with the latest research and advancements?
Great question. Thank you, Bella. I think that it's important for us to be lifelong learners. And so that's the first thing that I would say is in terms of staying up to date with latest research, it is such an evolving landscape that it's not adequate to simply earn a degree and think that you'll know everything forever. Things change. Things that we used to think were fact are no longer fact. When I was in school studying psychology, at that time I learned that the brain was just how it was, and that the neural circuitry just was how it was. That's not true. It actually changes and it evolves across time. We knew that it grew when you were young, but then we thought you got into adulthood and it just stayed static. And that is absolutely not true. The brain continues to grow and evolve based on what we're learning. So it's important for us to be lifelong learners. And then to speak to different emerging fields, I think that the career pathways of the future that are maybe the most innovative are things that haven't even been developed yet. They're not even invented. They're brand new career pathways. And those with a psychology background or degree are going to be at the forefront of those because they understand the human mind and behavior, and they're going to be best suited to be the leaders of the in whatever that field is in these new emerging careers. It's such a vastly changing landscape, and then things are changing so quickly now that it's impossible to tell. We would never have known when I was going to school what things look like now and what possibilities and options are available now. And I think that things will continue to be that way. The world is changing rapidly, and as the world changes, so do the different career paths.
I agree. I think it's I mean, looking back 5, 10 years, from now, back from now, I feel like no one would have understood that, or maybe would have expected that. The online careers, online studies, everything will be like as big as now, especially after the pandemic, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, so I feel like with having said that, I feel like from the videos that you just showed us, also, um, it seems that it's helping a lot of people, right? And I
Mhm.
think through psychology, I think it's something that that can be expanded as well later in the future.
Mhm.
So now, I do have a question as a follow up to this one,
Sure.
though, because we were talking about research, right?
Yes.
What What are the, I guess, the most interesting research that the University of Arizona is doing right now in the field of psychology?
We have University of Arizona psychology program is at the forefront of the field of aging, which I mentioned and touched on a little bit. And I think that one of the most interesting things that we're doing is studying the human brain, and as we're aging and growing and developing, we have large grants to do research in that area specifically. Uh, I mentioned this briefly, but the world is aging, and very soon we're going to have an equal number of folks age 65 and older that are age 18 and younger. This is the first time that we have seen this. Within the next 5 years, almost 1 in 5 will be age 65 and older. And by far and away, we're not ready for that. Just as a world in our society and cultures worldwide, we're not ready for that. And so this is a huge area of need for folks to go into careers related to the field of aging and to be able to really understand what the aging process looks like. Yeah, I can give a little story. So this is a personal story. My father has dementia, and he has a very rare form of dementia that is not well known and understood. And oftentimes it is misrecognized as something else. And he fell into that case where before he received official diagnosis, we thought it was mental illness. And that's because he was very young. And so it's unusual to be have dementia very young. And it changed his behavior and changed his behavior in a way that was so odd that it masked as mental illness. And if we don't have people who have done research in this area and are familiar with what this looks like, there's going to be a whole generation potentially of people who are misdiagnosed or misunderstood. And that's something that we see. We partner again in the field of aging with different um, independent and assisted and memory care facilities. And many of the people who work there don't know a lot about aging, which is a problem, especially when you're having an aging population. So again, using a personal example, if you have someone who uh, has potentially behavioral disruptions or outbursts, as you can see with folks who have dementia, you need people who know how to handle that and de-escalate it, because unfortunately without the proper training and understanding of the progression of that disease, you might have situations wherein folks could be unsafe And instead of de-escalating behavior, it could escalate behavior and exacerbate and make it worse. And that's something that I've seen. And so it's very important to train folks who will be able to go into these professions and work with people in different aging venues. And it's one of the things that we do best at at the University of Arizona in the psychology department.
Great. Thank you. So that was from Bella. So I hope that answers the question, Bella. Let's get another one. Another one from Instagram. This one is from Anna. So her question is, how is the work prospect in psychology major?
The work prospect is great. Most of our majors go on to earn, their 4-year degree and be able to be gainfully employed shortly thereafter. It I showed the graphic, but some of our students go on to graduate school, but those who want to go directly into the workforce are able to find jobs, and that's something that we also try to assist with and help with in finding different career pathways that work for the student. One of the things that we try to do is offer students different ways to interact even while they're in school. So we have classes and internships that are set up where students can interact not with just each other, not with just the faculty, but also with their local communities and being able to find opportunities there, wherever they are, worldwide, and being able to leverage those connections so that they are better suited to being able to find employment after they're done with their degree.
So I guess that's not true, and because a lot of people say, if you want to study psychology, then it's better for you to do it up until master's degree because if you're only doing your bachelor's, the work prospect is not as good. So I guess that's not right.
Yeah, that's definitely false. In the United States, you do need higher credentials to go into clinical psychology. And so I think it's a little bit of a misconception in terms of what you do with a psychology degree. Because most people, when they think of psychology, they think of clinical or counseling psychology. And so if that's something that is of interest, that's certainly a job prospect, and that will probably require additional education, at least in the United States. However, we have many students, over 40% of our students go directly into the career workforce without any additional education after their bachelor's, their 4-year degree.
Well, that's great to hear. And clinical psychology is, I I assume because it says clinical, that's something you have to go through the medical school process, or is that different?
No, you don't have to go. That's a great question. You don't have to go through the medical program to earn a clinical degree in psychology. It's a PhD program, so it is a 5-year program, and students will earn a master's degree along the way. But it's within the field of psychology. Now, there are people who will sometimes do different programs like a PsyD or an MD to be a psychiatrist, and that's a little bit different, but for a clinical psychologist, that is just in the psychology department.
So those are two different things.
They're very
Psychiatrist
yes,
and
yes,
clinical psychology.
correct.
Okay. All right. Got it. All right. Do we have any question here from the audience offline? Okay. We got two. Great. You can go first, Lauren. It's okay.
Thank you. I wanted to refer back to the video that we saw about anxiety, and I think both in the U.S. and here in Indonesia, probably everywhere, we've seen a rise in anxiety um, related to online education specifically, which we've also all become very familiar with since the pandemic. Does online education, in your opinion, isolate people that might be experiencing anxiety, or is there a way to bring them in and support them?
Thank you. That's a great question. I think that one of the benefits of the online program or students being able to complete coursework online is that they're able to do it in a way that is comfortable for them. So it's actually really a great option for those folks who might have social anxiety, which is definitely something that we have seen an uptick of and can be crippling for students. One time when I was early in my career, I had a class that was an in person class. And one of the assignments was an in person presentation. And all the students had to do an in person presentation at the end of the semester. And I will never forget that one student who had extreme anxiety. She had not told me about it ahead of time, otherwise, I would have made accommodations. But she got up in front of the class and she fainted. And um, I felt ill prepared to support her at that time, to be honest, because we did not have a lot of resources at that institution that I was at that time. However, the online world allows for students to still engage in the same experiences, but in a way that's comfortable to them. So we might have a presentation that students do online. They could record themselves where it's in the comfort of their own home in an environment that feels safe, and they're practicing the same skills. They're learning the same things, but they're not having to perform in front of a crowd. And so absolutely I think that online education is not isolating, and if anything it's really helpful for students to be able to connect in a way that feels safer for them.
Right. Okay, so my question is I'm actually interested in business psychology, and but my question is it always involve counseling in prospect of psychology career? Because in business, I actually took major in business, but I also wanted to take major in psychology. But I was wondering if it always involve counseling in everywhere psychology career go. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. The simple answer is no. Not all career pathways have to involve counseling. Even if you go into business or other fields, psychology is great because it really emphasizes critical thinking and being able to problem solve across disciplines. And it definitely does not all of our classes include counseling. In fact, the majority do not. So many of our courses emphasize learning about growth and development or about social interactions and relationships or the brain growth and development. They could emphasize sociocultural differences and the impacts of that on development and growth. And certainly applied to the business context, I think that that would be very helpful when running a business or working in a business or leadership within a business. And it does not have to include counseling. Thank you. Good question.
Right. We have one more question
Hello?
from an
Oh,
audience.
okay. Hello, I am an English teacher, and I think after attending this workshop, I'm quite interested in, taking psychology for my master degree. So my first question would be, would it be possible someone who took English education as their bachelor degree to take master degree in psychology? And if it's possible, how do I convince, the people in charge that this is a good idea, an English education graduates to switch into, psychology? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. We have a lot of students who come from different pathways and then switch to psychology. So that's definitely something that can happen. What I would say is that it's a matter of finding the right fit for the master's program that you go into. Many programs at the graduate level in psychology are research based. And so if you're coming from an English teaching, then you would need to obtain some type of research experience in order to go into that program. But that's not true of all master's programs. So certainly some of them are not research based. And so it's a matter of finding a fit that works for you and is right for you. And if it's something that you are interested in, is going into a more research oriented program, just the fact that you don't have that already doesn't necessarily mean that you would not be able to go into that pathway. So there's still opportunities to gain research experience even after you've graduated a program. You could work as a lab assistant, reach out to people. That's something I would recommend for students in general is faculty love to hear from students, especially those who are motivated and interested in the topic. So if there is someone whose work you're interested in, or there is a topic area that you're interested in, do some research and figure out who is working in that field and what are they doing and email them. I think that a lot of students are maybe afraid or nervous to reach out to faculty directly, but we're all just people ultimately. At the end of the day, we're just people. So feel free to send an email and a nicely worded email talking about where you came across their work or what it is that you're interested in that they're doing. and ask for their advice or their opinions. What programs might be available? Are they accepting any students? What additional experiences do you need to have, and how can you gain those experiences? So, certainly nothing is off limits. I would say you could absolutely still go into a master's program in the field of psychology and switch those pathways a little bit. Maybe you find the perfect fit for you, or maybe you do a little bit more work in order to prepare for a program that is of interest to you. But that's definitely something that can happen.
Any more
Great
question?
question.
Do you have any more questions on that? Enough? Okay. Right. So I think, I mean, for everyone who's watching online and offline, I think you've heard it from Ashley herself. Don't be afraid to reach out to faculty, right? To the
Absolutely.
admissions, to the university, because, at the end of the day, they really just want to help you, find the perfect fit or the perfect program for you, right?
Absolutely. Find the perfect fit, the perfect program, and the perfect career after graduating.
Exactly. All right. Okay, so let's go back to our online audience. We have one question from Instagram. This one's from Ulfa. And her question is, what are the key skills and qualities that are highly valued in the field of psychology?
The skills and qualities that are highly valued.
Correct. Yes.
I think that one of the most important things is being open to new experiences and willing to continue learning. Um, like I said, things change across time. Things are not static. And certainly the mind, when we're studying the mind and behavior, it's something that our knowledge continues to evolve and grow. It's not something that we know everything about right now. So what we know right now today is going to be different than what we know 5 years from now. And so the skills that would be important in the field of psychology would be to continue learning, being a lifelong learner and being able to find information. That's a skill that is sometimes not taught really well. And yet it's very valuable for students is learning where to find information and how to find appropriate information that is scientifically founded and based. And so those skills are also the transferable skills that would be helpful in whatever career pathway students go into, whether it's staying in the field of psychology or going into a different career pathway using their psychology degree. Being able to problem solve and think through difficult situations in a way where you can resolve conflict or problems are all very important qualities and skills that are necessary for folks who are from the field of psychology.
I feel like with those skills that you mentioned just now, because finding the information, that's basically research, right? And then
Yeah,
being open to like wanting to know more about, or maybe attaining knowledge and never want to stop learning. I feel like even if you study psychology and you decide that you don't want to be in the field of psychology, those are skills that would be valuable in any kind of field, right? So
absolutely.
people don't have to be in the field of psychology even if they study that, right? They can change their mind.
Absolutely. And
Okay.
they can change their mind multiple times. There's no rules in life that once you go into a career pathway that's where you
Right.
need to be forever. You could change your mind multiple times.
Okay. Great. We've got a lot of questions here. So we have another one. This is from Pita from Twitter. So she said, I work as a teacher and is interested to learn more about this field. Can you explain the role of an educational consultant in psychology and how they assist schools and educational institutions in improving their programs and practices?
So that actually sounds like maybe a couple of different things. So there's the field of educational psychology, but then also industrial organizational psychology. And it sounds like what she's saying is maybe kind of straddling both of those because industrial
Right.
organizational is more of what's going to help inform business models and practices. And then educational psychology is really within the field of education specifically.
Mhm.
And then there's also school psychologists as well, and counselors who work with children in schools. So I think that there's a lot of different pathways.
Mhm.
And certainly, what would happen in the United States is there's advanced training in whatever that specific pathway is that is of interest, so that there's licensure or accreditation that can be obtained to be able to go into those different fields. Um, we at the University of Arizona have different cognitive developmental psychologists, but we don't specialize in industrial organizational, and that's something that we're looking into and potentially expanding because it is something that can be so helpful for many different facets of business.
So you mentioned licenses just now.
Yes.
Does that apply to anyone who already has a bachelor's degree in psychology, or anyone with any degree who wants to take a license can do it?
You would need specific training to be able to obtain licensure, and it depends on the specific field that you want to go into of what that license would look like and the
Mhm.
specific requirement.
All right. So, any questions from the audience here before we go back to our online audience? Nope, not yet. All right. So let's go back to the online audience. We have Yusuf, and he's from Facebook, and his question is: in your opinion, what is the importance of learning psychology in this era?
I think psychology has never been more important, honestly, not to overstate it. But you mentioned briefly the pandemic earlier, and just coming back to that, there were a lot of profound changes during the pandemic and a lot of loss in multiple ways. Certainly loss of lives, but also loss of different educational opportunities and social interactions. And I think that the full ramifications of the pandemic have not yet been felt. I think that people who have been, a group that has been very profoundly impacted have been children and adolescents. And I think that we're going to continue to see the ramifications of that as they grow older. And because of that, I feel like psychology has never been more important. There's never been a time that we have a need as strong as there is now for folks who are able and qualified to work with children, adolescents, and adults and help them overcome many of the traumas that they've experienced and those crippling social experiences that they've potentially missed out on as well. There's a huge increase in anxiety and depression that we've seen. And the field needs people who are trained and capable of working with people and helping them. So I think that the field has never been more important, and I think it's only going to continue to grow.
That's interesting because previously we talked about the aging
Mhm.
populations, right? And now we're talking about the children and how it's going to affect them in the future. So would you say that I guess the two age groups, as you mentioned before, because we will have a lot of them in the future, right? In the next 5 years, do you think that we'll need more I guess child psychologists and psychologists for like the older group in the future? Do you think those are the two main age groups that will need them?
I think that we need psychologists at all age groups, honestly. I think that nobody is exempt. But yeah, I think that we're going to continue to see as children and adolescents grow, um, additional need that maybe hasn't been there in the past. And as the population ages, that is going to be also potentially an area of need. Um, it can be difficult for older adults when they start losing friends. And so there's certainly a lot of potential for grief and the need for grief counseling. And that's another area where we have experts at our university who do research and write books on this topic of how to handle and process that. And it's definitely an area that is is very much needed.
So I guess the good news is that there are a lot of opportunities, career
Yeah,
opportunities in the future, right? For students
absolutely.
who are studying psychology. Okay, right. We still have a couple of more questions here. The next one, Alithia. So we have a question from Alithia from Instagram, And her question is, what are the potential career paths for psychologists interested in working in the field of crisis and trauma? And how do they provide support and counseling to individuals affected by traumatic events?
That's a great question. I think those who are interested in going into the field of crisis and trauma are going to be well suited to go into a clinical psychology program so that they can obtain the training needed and the expertise to be able to um, adequately help folks in those situations. I think that there's also a difference in different types of trauma. So that's something that we talk about is everyone has experienced some type of trauma. And there's kind of big T trauma and little T trauma, which is just the different magnitude. And we have all, just by virtue of living through the pandemic, have had different experiences. And even pre-pandemic, all of us have had different life experiences where we can benefit from folks who are able to help us um, work through different psychological um, um, concerns that we may have in our life. And so, those who are interested in that, I think that it's a very growing area of need for helping folks process trauma. And I think that they would be very well suited by going into clinical psychology or a clinical psychology program.
Great, great. So I hope that answers your questions. Alithia, that's a pretty hard name to pronounce. We have one more question from Twitter, from Chica. And hers is, what are the unique challenges and rewards of pursuing a career as a psychologist in a private practice setting?
Private practice, I think, is probably going to be one of the more rewarding and challenging. So, asking about kind of the pros and cons, I think that it has both of those extremes. If you're in a private practice, you're working with folks one on one or potentially in small groups or um, just different situations where you're talking with them about different struggles in their lives. And ultimately, it can be very gratifying to help people through difficult, challenging times. And I think that we can all grow. And so being able to help people learn different coping strategies or skills or techniques to better cope with the difficulties in their lives has got to be one of the more gratifying experiences that there could be. But I would say it's also probably very challenging because you're talking to people who are coming to you with real problems. And so I would say that one of the challenges of that field is hearing really difficult things day in and day out and not bringing that home with you. Being able to leave that at the office and go home and still pursue your other life activities and interests without allowing that to weigh you down. So I think that it's both ends of the continuum, the very gratifying and also challenging career pathways.
Right. It's no, I have to agree with you because it must have been really hard to to leave everything at the office and not bring it home with you because that's what you hear every single day, day in day out,
Yeah.
right? So, do you have any, I guess, any tips for all the other psychologists out there,
Sure.
regarding that?
I think that one of the biggest struggles in life, whatever career pathway you go into, whether it is in psychology or if you go into a different field after earning a psychology degree, is learning balance and boundaries. And so being able to not immerse yourself in solely work, but being able to set it aside if it's needed and take time off to go on a vacation or be with your family or pursue a hobby. We all need outlets so that we have something for ourselves that's outside of work. And so engaging in and pursuing different interests and having having boundaries in place. If you are out of the office, making sure that you really separate that time of whatever it was that you were doing at the office with what you're doing when you go home. Sometimes it's helpful for people to have some type of like ritual where they, get in their car and they put their bag in the back, and that kind of signifies the end of one part of their day, that part of their life, and now they're moving on to the next. And being able to do that in a way where they're able to separate and really be present when they're home versus still constantly thinking about and worrying about work when they're no longer there.
Maybe it's good to not check the emails once you're home
Yeah.
and check the phones, right?
It can be
If they-
difficult. It's a skill that we all need to work on and practice more. But yes,
Right, I
absolutely.
agree. Okay. Okay. So we were talking about the private practice setting, but I do have a question about, because a lot of the advices that we have here, they work for the public sectors. Do you think there's I guess there's an opportunity, there's a field for psychologists or anyone with a psychology background in the not private, public sector?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that that's something that that we have in the United States as well. So we have folks who will work in public institutions, like school settings and things like that. And so that's definitely an opportunity or an area of opportunity for people with a psychology degree. We also have people who mm, take their degree and use it in a different type of public sector. So, like social services is one area, for example, that is in great need. And we have a lot of psychology students who are able to be successful going into that program or that career pathway and really make a difference in the lives of children and families by using the information that they've learned and applying it in that field.
All right. So let's see if we have any more questions from the audience right now. Oh, we have one right here.
You mentioned the people working in the public sector, but I think we're seeing more and more of a need for psychologists and reaching out to psychologists from corporate world as well for helping with research, but also in wellness programs. Can you talk about that, the kind of corporate side of psychology as well, because that's really growing?
I definitely think that that's a growing field, and there is certainly need there. That's something that a lot of a lot of corporations and business these days have um, enacted different programs to try to help with wellness overall, broadly defined, not just psychological wellness, but physical wellness and mental wellness by having different programs that are available. I know one thing that we have in our office is having yoga once a week, and so things like that where we know that there's a mind body connection, and so having healthy bodies is also going to help us have healthy minds, and vice versa. These things are cyclical. It's a two-way street. And so there's definitely a growing need for a lot of businesses that are now moving toward looking at employees not just as numbers or data points, but also looking at them as the whole person and really valuing the overall wellness of the human that is employed there and not just the bottom line for the company. I think that that's really something that we're seeing grow that's evolved also in light of the pandemic with flexible work environments and people being able to work remotely wherever they are. And that's something that we're probably going to continue to see throughout life because that has gained such an importance throughout the pandemic and and thereafter.
Do you have any more questions? Follow up on that? Okay. Any more question from the audience? Nope, not yet. Right. So I want to go back to like the university experience. You have online, offline schools right now. In your opinion, what do you think, or what kind of students would fit better in the offline or the online program?
That's a great question. Most of our students actually take some combination. So we do, I'd mentioned we have about 2,000 majors in our program and then about 400 who are fully online. But even of those who are our main campus face to face students, the majority, about 80% of them, take at least one online class or more. And so I think that there there's not necessarily a distinction of who needs to be just face to face versus online. I will say online education, one of the things that I really value about it is the access. That for the first time through online education, we're able to allow folks from anywhere, everywhere, to access a high quality education at a top institution. I've had students who, we mentioned anxiety, social anxieties, who wouldn't have been able to go to school main campus. I also have students who are from military families who move frequently. I've had students who had started at the University of Arizona and then ended up leaving either due to work obligations or often due to caretaking obligations and have only been able to complete their degree through the virtue of the fact that it is offered online. And so I think that the online program really is a great benefit for students who are interested in either completing their degree if they'd already started it or just obtaining a degree in general who may not be able to go traditionally face to face in person due to other life responsibilities, work, caregiving, moving, um, anxieties, whatever the case may be. So the flexibility of online education is very helpful for folks who fall into any of those categories. Face-to-face education, I don't think is going away. So there's always going to be face-to-face. I think that there's definitely a value of that as well. It's certainly a social, cultural experience for many students. And I think that that can be really beneficial in terms of overall growth and development, not just academically, but as a person. However, I think that even with those face to face students, it's so helpful for them to have the opportunity or the option to supplement their face to face course education with online courses because that allows them progression toward their degree. And so many of us these days have many hats that we wear and have many obligations that we have to attend to. And so students might be juggling a full time course load with also working to support themselves or their family. They have to pay bills. And so even if they're on campus face to face, being able to supplement that with online courses will help them to earn their degree in a shorter period of time, hopefully, versus if they had to take all of their courses face to face, it could potentially take longer. And so they're able to earn their degree sooner and then ultimately enter into the job market. And that's really what the goal is to be able to obtain a job. And so that's something that we really value and we really care about our students in psychology. We want them to be successful, not just within the program, but also after the program has ended with whatever career pathway they end up taking. And and I think that online education helps them do that, both with folks who are fully online as well as with those who are face to face who supplement their education with online courses.
Right. So the bottom line is that whether a student obtain the degree online or offline, there's no difference in terms of accreditation, anything, opportunities that they may have in the future.
Absolutely.
No
It's the same
difference.
exact degree, face to face and online. And so there's no difference in terms of the career opportunities that would be available for a student. I think that something that is really unique about the online education world is that it is helping folks be able to access education who would not otherwise be able to access it. Um, but ultimately, it's the same thing, and you're interacting with the same students, and you're learning the same skills, and it's all just translated or transferred online. And so it's not going to be a watered down education. It's not
Right.
going to be a lesser than just because it's online. It's the
Right.
same. It's the same.
Right. If anything, it reaches out more people, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Would you happen to know if, talking about the admissions processes now, would you happen to know if there's a difference between the online and the offline degree in terms of like how they select the students or what are the requirements needed?
So the requirements are exactly the same for online students versus the face to face students. In our program, we have the same courses are offered online that are offered face to face, and students have the same opportunities online and face to face. And that extends beyond coursework, but also into extracurriculars. So we have different clubs, like Psychi is one of our clubs where students can work together and be able to engage in teamwork and collaboration. But it's a club, and there's an online chapter in addition to a face to face chapter. And so students are able to participate in that. We have peer mentorship, we have that both face to face and online. And so there's equivalent opportunities for students to be able to be engaged and involved.
Oh, okay, that's amazing. Now, if we have no more questions from the audience here, we have one last one online. So I'm going to give the floor to our offline audience one last time. Nope. Okay, so one last question
Sure.
from our audience online. That's from Facebook, from Amelia. And her question is, I find that psycholinguistics or cross-cultural psychology very interesting. Is there any career path for those, or is there any school offer specifically that program for master's degree?
I would have to do research to see about the master's degree programs, but that's definitely something we have a lot of students who are interested in both. And that's something that students will often major in one and minor in the other, or vice versa, or double major. And there's a lot of ways that it intersects. We have faculty members who work in both departments, actually. So that's something that absolutely happens, and are able to help train the next generation of folks doing the same thing, who are interested in both psychology and linguistics. And we have amazing programs in both at University of Arizona, so that's really a benefit. And it's not just linguistics too. We have several different dual degree pathways. We have one with care, health, and society, with law, and with third. Neuroscience. So students can be educated in all of these pathways, and also be educated in psychology. And so it really can be helpful for them to be more marketable after graduation, because they're able to obtain an education in multiple things.
Okay, great. Those are all the questions that we have, both online and offline. So, do you have any last words, last messages for anyone who wants to study psychology or who are about to graduate with a psychology degree?
Well, congratulations to anyone who's about to graduate with a psychology degree. And I would just say that really the world is your oyster, that there's no limit to the possible pathways that you could go into. Psychology is applicable in so many different fields, and it's just a great degree because of that, that you can take that and use it in anything that you're interested in, and forging your own path. We started this conversation talking about what are the most popular, going to be the biggest growth areas for the field of psychology. And I think that those watching right now could be the ones who are creating those pathways, creating careers that don't even exist yet. And I'm excited for them. I'm excited to see what that's going to look like, because that is who the future is going to be, are these people.
Right. Okay. Thank you so much, Ashley, for your time. I hope you enjoy your time here in Jakarta.
Thank you so much.
We hope you come back next time and have another discussion with us. But for now, I'm gonna return the floor to our MC here, our guides, Asim, and for everyone who's watching from Education USA, happy Eid al-Adha. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ashley and Colin, for the wonderful session. Thank you also to everyone who has joined today. Now, at the beginning of today's event, I had a quiz for you guys watching, and the question was true or false. Counseling psychologists help people understand and take action on career and work problems. And the correct answer is true. Counseling psychologists also help people recognize their strengths and resources to cope with everyday problems. Shout out to @Jordanki from Instagram for being the fastest to answer the question correctly. That is it for today, everyone. See you at the next Ad America event. Bye-bye.